Should we explain to our listeners under 40 who Steve Guttenberg is?
He was the biggest
By the way,
star.
that's not our guest. So we make
our guest is not Steve Guttenberg.
No.
It's the other guy who had a one-man show that I went to. Man of the year, man of the year, man of the year. Welcome to the #1 friendship podcast in the country. I'm Matt Ritter.
I'm Aaron Karo.
Guys, we are so excited. We have a guest on today. And, you know, we always hear from you guys like, oh, we want tips. How do we make friends if we don't have any? Well, we have a guest who had no friends. And what did he do? Started a one-man show.
Started a one-man show.
A one-man show.
Matt, you're so excited about our guest that you forgot to plug manoftheyearpodcast.com. Get your merch. We got to sell merch. We got to move this merch.
We got to sell merch. So yeah, guys, that's the answer. If you want friends, you just have to do a one-man show.
I mean, it's probably, we say get off zero.
He went way off zero.
He went way off zero.
It's a lot of work. Is that too much work to make friends?
First of all, what do you define as a one-man show?
Well, there was only one of him on stage. His was a classic one-man show.
Okay.
But I also went to Steve Guttenberg's one-man show, and there were 4 actors on stage.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that a one-man show? Does he bill it as a one-man show?
I mean, I think so.
Dude, how to be an actor? Because that actor, you come in, you say one line, that's your whole night?
Well, no, the other actors played five. There were 200 roles.
What?
It was his whole career. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Wait, was one of them Wilford Brimley?
Diabetes.
Nobody from Cocoon. Yeah, there should have been some actors in Cocoon. It was more like agents and managers and other actors and actresses that he engaged
more
with.
Below the line?
Yeah, below the line.
Should we explain to our listeners under 40 who Steve Guttenberg is?
He was the biggest
By the way,
star.
that's not our guest. So we make
our guest is not Steve Guttenberg. It's the other guy who had a one-man show that I went to. Steve Guttenberg was the star of Cocoon, 3 Men and a Baby, the Police Academy Classic, Diner. What am I missing?
You say Cocoon?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that
pretty much covers it. Yeah.
Short Circuit?
Short Circuit.
Yeah.
Both Short Circuits. He had a really meteoric rise and saw his one-man show in the Hamptons. Then it made me think, what other one-man shows can I see?
So Gabe Mollica, he's a New York comedian. We got to see his one-man show when he was in LA. I think it was still sort of in the test runs.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. And, we'll let him tell it. But, he woke up one day, turned 30, and realized he didn't have any friends, which we've been talking about this for over a year. And he wanted to explore that. And see this comedic, 1 hour, one man, just him on the stage, talking about his friendship journey.
So without further ado, let's play the interview with Gabe Mollica.
Let's do it.
Gabe, thanks for doing this.
Matt and Aaron, thanks for having me, man. It's nice to reconnect.
Yes, thank you for having us at your show. It was awesome.
It was really cool to have you guys there because the friendship space online, it's not like there's so many people. And when I started doing the show and we started calling it a show about friendship, people were like, have you heard of? And I was like, oh yeah, I've heard of Man of the Year. People's friends' moms are sending this to me. I'm like, no. Oh, I'm on it.
And my mom sent me the invite to your show before we even connected.
That's so funny. Our moms want us to be friends. It's like fate.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get into it. There's kind of the jumping off point for the show. You say you turned 30 and you realize you didn't have any friends. So I just want to call bullshit on that right off the bat, because this is something that Matt harps on all the time on the pod, which is that a lot of people come to us and tell us that they don't have friends. And when we dig deeper, it turns out they actually do have friends. They just haven't talked to them, activated, and reached out. And what would you say? That are you a liar or?
It's funny. It's as an artistic conceit, it is, people do kind of, their ears perk up when I look pretty affable. People are like, this guy seems nice. What do you mean he doesn't have friends? And I do try to explore this idea, right? Like, what does it mean when you say that? And for me, it was like, hey, my mom got sick and the bros in my life kind of didn't know what to do. And so I take that as the jumping off point, which is, it's more of a question where you have to step back from your life and be like, wait a minute. What are my relationships like with the men in my life? And that, I think, is just worth exploring. And the most kind of bombastic way to do that, even in my soft-spoken way, is to just be like, I don't have friends. And that old Mitch Hedberg joke where he's like, I don't have a girlfriend. I just have someone who would be really upset if she heard me say that.
Right.
It's like this amazing joke. That's how I feel about the show, where like I would have people come to the show and be like, I'm friends with Gabe. What are you talking about? And then they'd be like, oh, I get what you're talking about. Now at least we can have a conversation about it.
I love that, because actually the second we kind of push back a little on people, I realize that they're saying it as sort of like a plea for help, but like it is good. You're bringing attention to something that there are millions of men saying out loud, and they're saying it because they want to fix this thing that isn't working in their lives right now. So my follow-up question is, you've been doing this one-man show for a year where you've been basically putting out a cry for help. Do you now have a better friendship circle or have some closer friends? What has happened since then? I'm very curious about that.
So when I talk about the show, I talk about my best friend, my oldest bro, I call him, Nick. And Nick, when my mom got sick, like just like kind of didn't know what to say, and immediately was just like, I'm an idiot. I'm so sorry. Like I'm so stupid. And he's not stupid, you know, like he just got a text from me and didn't know how to respond. And so I think one of the fun things about doing the show and talking about this very openly is that like Nick and I like talk on the phone way more now. And we've been going through like whatever family stuff or whatever her health stuff. And we've just been like 10% more open about that stuff. And just that 10% difference, that turning of the knob of like, hey man, like we can talk about this diagnosis. We can talk about like your uncle and the impact he's having on your or whatever it is. That's really, really helpful. And setting aside some time to have those face-to-face conversations. I'm sure you guys have talked about this endlessly, but like the shoulder-to-shoulder male friendship versus the face-to-face stuff, which is so valuable. And sometimes Nick and I will just be like, I'm going to come over and we're going to go out to dinner, which is a thing we would never normally do. Normally we would just sit on the couch. We're next to each other. We're watching a music documentary. We never have to talk about our feelings. And I've been making a point now where I'm like, hey man, I just got to Brooklyn. Meet me at a restaurant. We'll just have a face-to-face conversation. And suddenly things start to slip out because there's no TV.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
I have a more important question than Matt's question, which is that, okay, you're doing this one-man show so successful, like, are you getting laid? Like, that's, you know, we're stand-ups. Matt's married, but, you know, that's the whole point. Like, is it...
Anthony DeVito, my friend, the comedian, was like, dude, you're doing this show. You're not going to get women sliding into your DMs. You're going to get guys being like, do you want to go to the Jets game? And I was like, that is a very fair point. You know, it's interesting. I'm like, what I'm working on for my next show is just like, well, I'm miserable because I only want to do is like walk around and write stuff. And so I would like to make more time to like go on dates and like be a person. But I'm like, I'm not that fun. So like, yes, like every once in a while.
Gabe, you should see who's sliding into our DMs. Oh yeah, it's you.
Right. You've become the monster you hate yourself.
We're all sliding. All podcasters and comedians, all we do is slide.
I was going to say, I just wanted to stop you for a second. I love what you said about the 10%. Because we talk a lot too about saying thank you. It's a gateway emotion. We don't expect all of our bros to just suddenly like have a love fest overnight. Sure. And so I think it's great for our audience to hear you say that. Like, you guys have just gotten yourself 10% more opened up, and that's been enough for now.
Totally. And I also think that, like, at least the men in my life, I don't want to speak in too broad of generalities, but like they show their affection in different ways. Like I have a buddy, Chris Redkin, who I one time did a Riverside podcast and my Ram was shot and it just crashed. And I made sure I called him last night and I was like, I'm doing a Riverside podcast. Can you help me do the tech stuff? And he was like 8:00 at night. And he's like, I just finished dinner. I just washed the dishes. Like, let me help you out. And it's like, that's how he can show affection to me, right? He's not going to be like, oh my God, Gabe, you're so brave for quitting your job and doing comedy. He's like, hey, how can I help you do this podcast?
That's Karo, man. Friend of utility.
That's right. You need a friend of utility. So one of the best things that we talk about in the podcast, one of our favorite sayings, best practices, we actually just stole from Matt's therapist, where Matt was having an issue with one of his friends, and the therapist said, "Listen, friends aren't mind readers." And
I thought we decided we weren't going to give her credit, and then I was
shit!
Give credit. Damn it!
You're actually right, Matt. We actually had a conversation. Fuck. Should I say that again? That's fine. Fuck it. Whatever. So when your buddies kind of didn't really respond well, or let's say respond as you needed them to your mom's, sickness. Was there, now looking back, or even then, like, was there a part of you like, well, if I had just sort of told them what I needed, maybe they thought, well, he doesn't want to be bothered.
Oh, absolutely.
They're not mind readers,
Not mind readers at all. And they're also like, it was a text, like, it's funny to like lower the stakes of my own show, but it's like, I sent a text and like I had a mental breakdown over it. Like I totally flipped out and threw my phone and like was totally outraged because my mom was sick and I didn't know what to do. But I just sent him an innocuous text that I didn't get the response I needed, and I kind of flipped out. So it's definitely on me. I think a lot of times there's just so much you can control, and if Nick doesn't want to get a face-to-face dinner with me, or he doesn't want to put in that extra 10%, it's like you can find somebody else who will want to put in 5 or 6 more percent. Like it's a lot of it is on us. And my show is very external. Like I'm talking about other people and I put other people on blast. But like the undertones are like, this guy just didn't ask for what he needed.
Yeah, well, it is funny. I've also been thinking about this idea that once you stop, you can try to make friends be the person you want them to be. But once you stop doing that, it's easier for you to appreciate them for who they are.
Oh, we got a Mattism. Clip that, put it on Instagram.
Yeah, it's really, because I do think it's really important to go, okay, I can either accept my friend for who they are and accept their limitations. And like, maybe this guy isn't the person for me to talk to about my sick mom, and that's okay. Or what you're saying is invest the mental energy elsewhere in another friend that has the capabilities to do that.
1,000%. I just had this conversation with my mom where like she was talking about my dad and she was like, yeah, like he didn't do X or Y. And I was just like, you're going to the wrong store. Like that's just like, they don't sell that there. Like you're looking for gourmet food at 7-Eleven, and like 7-Eleven has everything, but you're just not going to find that particular thing. And that doesn't mean 7-Eleven's bad. Yeah, going to the right places. I think that's a thing that we can take ownership of, as opposed to being like, I'm alone, no one wants to be around me. I have no friends, where it's like, no, like you can. And for me, it's not like I'm going to join a kickball league. Like I'm not that kind of person. Like I'm not that social. But for me, it's about like cultivating these relationships and like just trying different people. Somebody was going to send me the right friendship text. I just, I didn't go there.
Yeah. We also talk about how it's lower stakes. People have like such a fear of this thing. It's not like dating. The rejection is much less. The hanging on to something, you can just let it go like much quicker than like, okay, this person's too busy for me, whatever. Just move on.
Totally. The embarrassment. I mean, like, yeah, dating, like there's a sexual component, there's a social component, there's like, who am I being seen with component, where a friendship, like the lower stakes is kind of like the nicest part about it, where it's like, I read this friendship textbook with this guy, Jeffrey Greif, and he like kind of like ranked friendships, where he's like, there's must friends, there's trust friends, there's rust friends, and there's just friends. And he has this whole like theory about it. And I'm not saying write every person down in your life and rank them, but I am saying to know, to find it, to have different categories of people for when you're looking for different things. I think that's totally fine.
I have a question about just one-man shows in general, because my stand-up is always sort of more storytelling based, and a couple people have said it over the years, oh, you should try one-man show. But what is like? Do you do it at like what is a one-man show?
It's an amazing question. Yeah, I got inspired years ago. I saw Birbiglia's My Girlfriend's Boyfriend, and I was just like, oh, that's the only thing I want to do. And so I knew right away. So I was going to open mics, working on jokes about rice cakes and Taco Bell and whatever, but also being like, how does this fit my narrative? Like, I want to do a 75-minute narrative. And so that's just what I like. I think I was raised on like those like Judd Apatow movies where it's like, it's really funny, but like the reason you care about Superbad is because of their friendship, right? Like who cares? At a certain point, like the jokes in Superbad and the jokes in Step Brothers are all equally good, right? But for me, I want that compelling narrative, and so I just started doing that. And so I work out the bits at clubs, like I'm working out friendship jokes at New York Comedy Club, but then I'm like, oh, this is secretly an open mic for this other thing. So like, do I do it at comedy clubs? Like kind of, but not the whole arc. I'm not going to do a 75-minute show because now we've added, you guys saw like a limited version of it. Now there's like 130 cues behind me, screens pop up there. We've turned it into theater. And so that's kind of
Production
like a whole
values.
projection value skyrocketed. Yes.
Oh, does
Yes.
he have a backer? Is he sponsored by Mike Birbiglia? Sponsored by Josh Edelman?
One day, you know what's funny? We're by the time people hear this, it'll probably have been over. But we're doing a show off Broadway in New York, and my dad works in horse racing, and it's like raising money for a movie. So like I have all these backers. I have 4 backers, and they're all just like horse racing people. So it's just like you never know who's gonna. I have all this horse racing money.
You're like, let it ride on Mollica.
Literally.
Wait,
Yeah.
what do you mean your dad works in horse racing? Like he works at OTB?
I spent a lot of my childhood at OTB. My dad was a sports agent for Jockeys when I was a kid.
Wow.
It was a very weird job.
What?
Yeah. So I grew up like on the racetrack. So like if you know anything about horse racing, my dad had like Jose Santos and Chris Antley and Joe Bravo.
Yeah. Wow.
And yeah, I know like I can go to the racetrack. The scene in Goodfellas when he walks into the restaurant, and everybody knows him. That's my dad at every racetrack in North America, basically.
Does your dad love that movie, Let It Ride?
He loves Let It Ride. He liked Luck on HBO. He was the one person who was watching that.
Yeah, they killed 9 horses in the production of that one.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, they had to get rid of that. And now my dad went to law school, and now he's a horse lawyer, which I think is going to be the name of my next show. I know, isn't that weird?
Wow, I want to talk to your dad.
Wait, what do you mean? He represents like humane societies and shit?
He represents a lot of people who like work on the racetrack. So like I work on the backstretch. I got hurt. You know, it's a lot of people who don't speak English. It's a lot of immigrants. And he'll also represent like jockeys who gets this, like in baseball. It's like, oh, he had pine tar. He got suspended for 3 games. He gets an arbitration. He needs a lawyer.
Oh, jockeys are pine tarring? What's the equivalent of pine tar for a jockey?
They're riding recklessly. They
bump. Rubbing is racing, like in Days of Thunder, baby. Rubbing is racing.
Matt, do you realize that Gabe's dad is combines like excessive gambling and law? This is like
He should have been my dad.
Oh, you guys bet? This is great. I'll meet you guys at Delmar.
Well, my dad died in a casino with a 50-cent voucher in his pocket at World Resorts in Queens. So
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, God bless.
Yeah.
Legend.
Matt, you know what I just thought of? Fucking one-man show.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about the one-man show too. I want to follow up on that.
Please.
I have this picture in my head of it being easier on some level for stand-ups because you're just lowering the bar for like having to have that huge laugh every 30 seconds.
Yeah. I think that one of the things you can do more like I did a new hour. That's a new solo show. And I was like, I don't know if I have the time. And then I did an hour and I was like, oh, that hour would not have flown in a comedy club, but for a working it out solo show hour. But also it's kind of nice in that you give yourself more time. When you start out jokes in New York, you're doing 3-minute open mics and you're like boom, 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 boom. So I want my shows to be as funny as possible. But I also know if they're not, like the way I describe my show, it's like there's fireworks for the first 30 minutes. It's just like as good as any stand-up set, I hope. And then the laughs get a little bit further apart, but they get bigger because it's a story laugh, right? So we're building to like this big story, boom, big moment. But I want it to be, oh, like I saw Gabe do that material at a club and it was great. And then when I saw it in the show, it all made sense to me. It's like, that's why he's talking about this stuff.
So are you still doing, quote, regular stand-up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll go to clubs. I'll do club spots all the time. Alt shows in Brooklyn, whatever. I'm kind of an equal opportunity person. But when I started, it was like the stand-up mics and the story mics. Because at a story mic, you get 7 minutes. And it's just longer amount of time. And so I want to be able to, the old analogy is like storytelling's cardio and stand-up is weightlifting, where it's like high intensity, boom, boom, boom jokes is lifting. But then you want to be able to run the marathon, which is, I did the show the other day, it was 90 minutes. Like it got too long, but it just extends it because people want to know more details.
I love you said the old saying that I've never heard of before.
I mean, I know a lot of sayings.
I know, yeah. Matt knows every ye old saying. Is the show always the same every night?
I really try to be very, very present. And so, like, if we need to riff about something, I'm okay with acknowledging stuff. The other thing about having done it all over the country now is you notice different cities have different things that they like more. So I'll lean into those. So, like, In New York, they love the theater references. In LA, I referenced Little Miss Sunshine, the movie, and everyone was like, hell yeah, movies. And I was like, oh, of course, we're in a movie town. In Pittsburgh, they were like, oh, The Drinking Story is my favorite. Or like the kids with disability stuff we loved. And so when I know that on stage, like, and I'm like, oh, they're loving this thing. Oh, I'll lean into that even more. So yes, I try to be, I'm not a robot. I'm not reading off a teleprompter for the most part.
Before we let you go, I just wanted to ask, what would you say is the best thing that happened, from this whole experience? I mean, what is, if there's one thing that just has sort of changed for you, or insights, just something that's, or just, hey, I just got to go on this show or meet these cool people or whatever. Obviously, other than this being on this massive podcast. Yeah,
this is sweet. This is really sweet. My favorite thing is after the show, there's no mystique about me. I'm not like, oh no, don't find me. Like I grab my backpack and walk outside and I talk to people, and I will stay there for hours and hours and hours. Like I've stayed till midnight before, just chatting with people. And that's why you do the show, You don't do it for revenge on the people in the show. You don't do it to have the last word. You do it to connect with people. And it's the same reason you guys do this podcast and you get messages and stuff like that. But one of the, as you guys both know, as live performers, people want to engage with you. And I was just on This American Life, which was very cool. And I've been getting a lot more messages and a lot more people interested in seeing the show. And so that's a gift and a blessing, but it's like, I was already getting that. I'm just increasing the scale. So the more people who want to talk to me, I'm happy to talk.
Well, to our listeners, you got to go see his show. It's heartwarming. It's funny. It just makes you think, especially if you're a guy who's in this zone of your 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever it is. But you're just like, man, how did I wake up one day with no friends? Right? Because that's the realization you had, and it's shared by so many of our listeners and so many people out there. I think it's just, that's why it's resonating. And that's why we had to get together, right? That's what brought us together. This notion that like, this is a fixable thing. If you just have to put a little thought into it.
Totally. And for men in general, we probably could use a little more thoughtfulness, but I get messages from all types of people of every gender, every sexuality. People are like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like I have that relationship with a guy or with my girlfriend or whatever. And so that's been really satisfying. So yeah, Chicago at Christmas, I'm doing 5 shows at the Den Theater. Come check me out.
Amazing. Gabe, thank you so much. The show was great. Everybody should check it out. That was great. That was like a one-man show on Zoom for us.
Yeah. And I like that we're engaging with other people that are focused on this issue of improving your social fitness.
Well, you know how I feel about that.
Yeah, Karo originally was like, no, we're the only friendship people in this space. And I'm like, no, there's room for more.
I go, no guests. That's my only rule. No guests.
He goes, no guests. And I go, well, I have Phil Rosenthal lined up. He goes, okay.
All right, fine. We'll get fine. But that's typical Karo, Matt. I go, no guests. And it's a hard and fast rule. And you chip and you chip. And now I'm like, all right.
The velvet bulldozer.
So what I love what Gabe said, I think he said something like he was going to his friends for certain intimacy, vulnerability that certain of those friends just couldn't provide. He said, you're going to the wrong store. They don't have that in stock.
Right.
They don't carry that. What do you think about that?
So I think I have one opinion is I totally agree. And I've always talked about this thing of like letting go of trying to make your friends something they're not and appreciating them for who they are. If you can just appreciate them for the guys you play fantasy football with and not talk about, deeply personal stuff. But I think our goal is if you do have friends that you value and you just haven't been vulnerable with each other, I think we're trying to crack that nut. So I have two feelings. What are your thoughts?
Different folks for different strokes, right? Yeah. If you're having a certain kind of issue,
right,
there's certain kind of friends you go to.
Right.
Now, the problem is if you have friends you can't go to with anything.
Right. Well, he was basically saying I had this group of friends and nobody was there for me when my mom was sick.
But
But he also didn't communicate that.
Yes, I was
he just texted them.
Right. You need a little bit more than a text. It's your friends aren't mind readers. Right. You do need to communicate a little bit to get what you want.
Right. You need to be the friend, but you also need to be more vulnerable. And I also think relationships aren't always 50-50. They're never 50-50. So sometimes you have to like go out on a limb a little bit yourself to get the thing that you may want. But again, when you say going to the wrong store, I think like if these are your core friends, it's either one of two things. Either you're going to the wrong store or, you need to express that, hey, I want us to have a relationship that's at this other level, which I think men as a whole, we're trying to improve that whole thing, right? We're saying, hey, it's not okay to not be vulnerable with any of your male friends.
Can we talk about the biggest bombshell he dropped in the interview about his dad?
Oh, that his dad was like my kind of guy.
He's you in
10 years.
Yeah. So he's a jockey agent.
Yeah, I love that.
Turned horse track lawyer.
Yeah. Do you think because like jockeys are historically from underrepresented minorities, do you think he was taking more than 15%?
You think he was taking advantage of them?
I'm asking.
I mean, why
he was a gambler? Begs the question.
I mean, why are we slandering his dad?
I'm not. We love you, Mr. Mollica.
Yeah,
but I would like to know
Yes.
what the cut is.
Yes. What's the vig?
You know, because like when, I don't want to compare it to, but you know, like when people bring over workers from other countries and they like hold their visas, you know, you always hear these horror stories.
Yeah.
About how
God, you really went down a really
dark hole there. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I'd never heard of jockey agents.
What do you think a jockey makes in a year?
Well, the good ones definitely make 7 figures. Like the ones that you'll see at like the ones who have won Belmont or the Derby.
Right.
But I think probably 80 grand, I'm guessing.
Right.
What do you think?
Theo, you Google what if the average jockey makes?
Yeah. What do you think a jockey makes?
The average jockey?
The average jockey. Like, just like, but we're talking about a professional jockey. You're the 52nd ranked jockey.
25 grand.
It can't be 25.
Dude, have you seen the
you think they live in the stables?
You think the TikToks going around? They interviewed at the US Open all the tennis players who are under 50 ranked.
They make 40 grand.
Yeah, they make like 15 grand.
I know.
Yeah.
The difference is
huge pay. Well,
the difference is the jockey comp isn't dependent, I don't think, in the same way. Like tennis players basically are dependent on making the finals or quarterfinals to actually make money. If they just are in the competition, they make like $100 flat fee or something bullshit.
Right.
But I think jockeys get paid by their training team regardless.
Right. They work for a company. They get W-2.
Right. So they get W-2.
They get W-2. Okay.
They get
Okay,
W-2s.
that's smart.
Yeah,
Theo's
they're not
got-
1099 like these tennis players.
Yeah, so
Wait, why don't we deal with this after? This is now.
I know. I don't guess
You'll get the answer.
Yeah.
got to get immediate results
Yeah.
here, you know? So the median salary is about 48K.
What did I say? I said 80? What'd you say?
I said 25.
You were closer.
Yeah.
The low end is 10K.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
So there's some dark pits.
That
in
does
the
not
horse
cover.
stables.
What about their? First of all,
The whips?
I was going to say if I'm a jockey in my salary negotiation, I'm negotiating the highest PPO medical plan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because you get thrown from the horse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
Okay.
MMA fighters who have no medical benefits.
Right,
They get
right.
$5 grand flat fee,
Yeah.
$60,000 hospital bill.
Yeah. All right. What's up? What's the high end?
The high end is like 270K.
That's it.
Well, that's
Not-
85th percentile is about 270K.
Not highest. Look up #1 jockey.
Yeah.
salary.
Highest paid jockey.
Yeah, that's what
Did I
I'm-
ever tell you I went on a date with a horse veterinarian?
I do recall. Didn't you live in Santa Ana?
I did.
Did I ever tell you? I love when you say, "Did I ever tell you?"
Yeah, you're right.
Of course
you're
you
right.
told me.
Yeah. So I asked her, I'm like, you're a horse veterinarian in a horse track or whatever. I'm like, you obviously love horses. Like, isn't it like, what's the word? Like bad for the horses?
Right.
Inhumane?
Yeah. Is it inhumane?
So she said, I thought it was very interesting. She goes, horses who don't want to run don't become horse races, like racehorses.
Right.
Like they just become regular horses. And horses that love running, they run. And he's like, if you're a professional racehorse, you're treated better than any horse on the planet.
Right. Except if you're on that set of that show with David Milch.
Luck.
Where they killed 9 horses.
Yeah. The 9th was not the charm.
Yeah.
All right. Highest paid jockey.
Okay, we have a Japanese jockey
What's his name?
named Yutaka Take.
Okay.
Okay.
And he's made in his career $925 million.
What? What? No.
That's so wrong. He's
That
totally
can't
wrong.
wrap
There's like a
Possibly
whole
right.
top 10 list. Everybody's in like the 500 mils.
Who
These
else?
guys are making a
So
killing.
throw some names out.
The next one's also Japanese. Norahiro Yokoyama, 607 mil.
Keep going. I don't believe anything.
It's in yen. It's
That's-
got to be in
yeah,
yen.
yeah.
That's a big drop off though. That's
Yeah,
like
that must be in
300
yen,
mil
yeah.
drop
Is
Go
it
on.
in yen?
I'm getting dollars here.
Okay,
We
hold
got
on.
that-
Next.
That Arlie money sign on here. And
Next.
then we got another Japanese guy, Yuichi Fukunaga, 561.
All right, let's find a
If
non-Japanese
we want the
guy.
American, the highest paid American
or Hispanic probably jockey.
is John Oh man.
He can't pronounce the guy, that guy's name.
Velasquez.
Oh yeah, he's famous.
Velasquez.
Yeah.
John Velasquez.
Yeah, John Velasquez.
Is he American or is he Mexican?
Whatever. He's not.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
He's the highest earning jockey of all time in America.
Okay.
In America, okay.
And he made $430 million.
What?
Is this right?
Dude, do we
totally diss John? We like, dude, first
Mr.
of all, Mollica's
Mollica.
rich.
Yeah, fuck.
Wait, he's making 30% of 400
No
million?
wonder he can throw his life away to make it a one-man show.
Yeah, it's always a kid who's rich. Now,
Nepo baby.
Nepo baby.
Gabe Mollica,
Nepo
horse
baby.
Nepo
Horse
baby.
Nepo baby.
Wow.
Mollica.
Wow.
Wow. And I totally look at him totally different. I was like, oh, he's a hard scrabbled kid.
Yeah. Hard-nosed.
Hard nosed. And now I'm like, oh, he made, even if he only was taking a reasonable cut of 10%.
Right. Wow.
Velasquez.
Unbelievable.
But he gambled it all away. Couldn't have gambled it all away.
Unbelievable. Well,
Interesting guy.
yeah. Interesting guy.
And you guys should see his show.
So I wanted to mention he's going to be in Chicago December 20th to the 23rd. And I believe it's GabeMollica.com. You can find him on our socials.
So I actually just looked up Theo's bold claim.
Yeah.
Of course. Why are we calling it? Should we call it erroneous because of Thelonious?
Right.
Erroneous Thelonious?
Yeah, erroneous Thelonious.
Erroneous Thelonious, like Amelia Bedelia's brother. Because I believe he just said that the number one horse jockey made $900 million
Right.
in earnings in his career.
Yeah.
And we called bullshit.
Yeah.
And of course, they were actually talking about the earnings of all of the horses they raced for their owners.
Right. I mean, that is still pretty good.
So he made
directionally.
$14.5 million in 20 plus years.
Right.
Which
Oh.
sounds a little more reasonable. I was like, wait a minute, you're telling me that the horse jockey made more than LeBron or
Right,
Jordan
right.
or, Tom Brady.
Ronaldinho, whatever.
Yeah,
what is
yeah,
that
yeah.
Brazilian guy? By the way, if we should do an animated show based on the podcast and have a character erroneous Thelonious, he just says shit that's wrong.
Yeah, I love that.
His Googling has gotten better, but then it just
That was rough.
That was tough.
I mean, literally, if you Google highest earning horse jockeys, that's what comes up.
But you
So
got
he's the kind of guy that doesn't read with
Yeah.
context. He has no, you know what he doesn't have? Reading comprehension.
All right. We got it, Thelonious.
Yeah.
We got it. We're good.
You got to do the outro and let's get out of here.
All right. Be good to yourself. Be good to your friends.
Love you, buddy.